Lin-Manuel Miranda was born on January 16, 1980 in New York City. Both of Lin's parents were from Puerto Rico, and this had a big influence on him as he grew up. He would spend his summers in Puerto Rico and would listen to Latin music in his home. His father was a political consultant, which would later help Lin to get a job writing jingles for political ads, and his mother was a clinical psychologist. Lin also grew up with an older sister named Luz, as well as his father's former nanny, whom he considered to be like a grandmother. She had a significant impact on his childhood as he grew up. As Lin grew up, Latin music was not the only influence he had. He rarely had money to go see Broadway shows in person, though the few that he did see had a big impact on him. Even though he couldn't go to all of the shows, he had access to recordings of the music from the productions that he would often listen to at home. Lin also listened to a wide variety of music and exposed himself to many different genres as he was growing up. His favorite music consisted of rap and hip-hop, though often this was hard to find in the musical productions. By the time Lin reached elementary school, he had gained a fascination at inspecting the lyrics of different musical productions. One of the things that personally drew me into him as a creator was his exquisite sense of lyricism. One might look back at this early fascination with lyrics as being the beginning of what would become one of his trademark skills. Lin also became fascinated with the film The Little Mermaid, specifically with Sebastian, whom he interpreted as being a frustrated musician. Young Lin-Manuel could relate to the character and even ended up naming his son after him. In elementary school, Lin attended a piano recital that did a lot to encourage his musical ability. The audience would not be silenced from clapping when he finished his song and allowed him to continue song after song until the teacher had to step in and put an end to his mini production. By 6th grade, Lin was involved with the school theater program and was placing himself into musicals. By placing himself in this type of an environment, he was able to work on growing his skills and was given opportunities to flourish. He moved on to high school at Hunter College High School in New York. Here, Lin was able to take on more creative leadership roles due to the student-led nature of the environment. Not only did Lin act, but he had the opportunity to start writing one-man plays and also tried his hand at directing. By college, Lin-Manuel had moved on to Wesleyan University, where he was able to major in theater and gain exposure to even more aspects of the theater, including makeup, lighting, set design, costuming, directing, and acting. As the future would hold, this would be valuable information for Lin, who would go on to create his own large-scale productions. Having an ability to be exposed to these various aspects of the theater seems to have given him a good understanding of the different elements that go into this type of a production. One such production was titled In the Heights. The idea for this musical came to Lin as he was in class, and he quickly scribbled the idea down into his notebook. This became a crucial moment, as In the Heights would become the musical that would eventually expose him to avenues that would allow him to progress in theatrical productions. He wrote a song for the musical and ended up being accepted into Wesleyan's second state program, where he could further develop his idea. In a few months' time, Lin was able to complete the musical by devoting all of his time and effort to the project. As previously stated, Lin had exposed himself to so many different musical genres that he decided that he wanted to see some of his favorite genres, like rap and hip-hop, represented in the theatrical medium that he so much enjoyed performing in. He wanted to create the musical that he always wanted to be in. This novel way of looking at a medium that he grew up with allowed him to bring new elements to the field that had not been combined before. How often have you visited an opera or musical where all of the numbers sound similar? They often sound related and connected stylistically. This is often not true of Lin-Manuel Miranda's productions. Looking singularly at the production of Hamilton, you see a wide variety of rap music, ballads, upbeat dance numbers, and just about any musical combination you could imagine. Still, it all comes together flawlessly to tell a cohesive and inspiring narrative. In the Heights ended up including 14 songs that were original to Miranda and told the story of a neighborhood where he had grown up. He was able to draw from his own experiences when formulating the musical, which added a personal touch to the production. At the same time, he was able to bring in new story elements that were not present in his own personal life. This combination of factual experience with fictional creativity combined with the novel musical elements to create a one-of-a-kind production. The show opened its run in April of 2000 and broke box office records, Clearly, people were interested in seeing what Lin-Manuel had to offer. A man named Thomas Cale was present in the audience of the show and was very impressed with Manuel's ability. Cale would become a central character in Lin's life who would open the door for opportunity in the realm of musical theater in New York. In 2002, it came time for Lin-Manuel to write his thesis. For this project, he wrote another musical. Thomas Cale, once again, came to view the production after being impressed with Lin's previous work. He was so impressed with this new production that he took Lin on under his production company to further develop his previous musical, In the Heights. Cale believed that Miranda would be able to improve upon and further develop the production under the production company. After college, Manuel took a job teaching 7th grade English, which allowed him to investigate writing even more in his employment environment while teaching another generation of creators about the art of literature. My first introduction to Lin-Manuel Miranda came when Hamilton was released on Disney+. This production is what first drew me into wanting to learn more about what I interpreted to be a creative genius. As someone who had grown up with musical theater as an important part of my life, I was awestruck by the production. So many of my friends had fallen in love with the musical, and there was so much hype surrounding it all that I was truly skeptical going into my viewing. However, I could not believe how engaged and interested I was in a musical about one of our founding fathers. It seemed like such a novel concept to me. How would one make a musical out of a history story that very few seem to know a lot about? In watching the musical, I found that I was not only learning about history, but was also drawn into all of the musical numbers. I was struck by the variety of music that occurred throughout the production. There was a mix of hip-hop, rap, ballads. This is not something that I'd been familiar with in musical theater before. Most productions seem to stick to one genre, but not Hamilton. Not knowing anything about Lin-Manuel Miranda before the production, I was very surprised that it was constructed this way. I was also particularly drawn into the performance of Lin-Manuel Miranda as Hamilton. I had no idea upon viewing the musical that he had also created and composed the production. I was simply drawn in by his vocal ability and the way that he was able to communicate such rich emotions by facial expressions. Another creative element used in this production was the mix of humor with serious dialogue. There are some very serious moments in the production, ranging from the death of Hamilton and of his son, to his promiscuous affair. However, there was a beautiful balance that Lin was able to strike in creating the scenes. For example, the song Say No to This is very serious in nature and about an affair. But there are humorous elements like when he received the letter from the woman's husband extorting him, which is a very serious moment. He stopped mid-line in the song and alluded to the use of what we can assume to be a certain inappropriate word. The way that this was done was humorous, and the ability that Lin had to make such a serious plot point funny was absolutely creative. Another creative element in the musical that struck me was the use of the same line in different parts of the production. For example, in the song Helpless, Hamilton's wife describes the feeling she had when she first met Alexander. She felt helpless. Later on, when Angelica is describing the situation, she reuses the line of helpless to describe Eliza's feelings. This is only one of many examples within the musical that uses this type of cross-writing. Many songs provide throwbacks to other songs and are intermixed so beautifully and delicately. Another example of this is the song My Shot near the beginning of the musical. In this song, Alexander Hamilton describes the feelings that he has about death. Later on, at the end of the musical, when Alexander dies, Lin wrote in a throwback to this moment. A third example is when Eliza finds out that Hamilton is having an affair and she sings that she will be taking herself out of the narrative. At the end of the musical, she sings about putting herself back in the narrative. These moments of musical foreshadowing and throwbacks were so beautifully written that I found myself so excited each time that a moment like this would occur throughout the production. This was such a new and creative way of tying different elements of the musical back together into a cohesive narrative. The vocal range that was written and showcased in the production was also striking. Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote the musical in a way that would showcase the performer's vocal ability. Not only did most performers have to be skilled in rap and hip-hop, but they also had to be able to hit many low and high notes, even a combination of these within one song. One example is the song that King George sings. In this song, there are extremely high and falsetto notes and also extremely low notes within just a few bars of music. The way that this song is written also has great comedic elements. King George was a somewhat villainous character to the rebels during this time in the Revolution, but Lin-Manuel was able to write the character in a way that was extremely humorous and endearing to the audience, even somehow when he was singing about killing the friends and families of American citizens. His song was also written like a love song, which was a very novel way of thinking of the relationship between the American citizens and the British government. The estranged relationship perspective of this song, in comparison with a romantic relationship, was a brilliant and novel take on the concept that showcased Miranda's creativity. If you don't believe me yet, let me emphasize that my friends and I were certainly not the only people to be wowed by the production of Hamilton. Hamilton and In the Heights were both recipients of Tony Awards. Hamilton also won the 2016 Pulitzer Prize in Drama and also had a record-breaking 16 Tony nominations. 11 of these nominations were won, and 2 of them were personally won by Miranda. Both Hamilton and Miranda won the 2016 Drama League Awards for Distinguished Production and Outstanding Performance. The original recording of Hamilton won a Grammy Award for Best Musical Theater Album. Hamilton had sold out off-Broadway run and won a record-breaking 10 Lortel Awards, 3 Outer Critics Circle Awards, 8 Drama Desk Awards, New York Drama Critics Circle Award, and an Obie for the Best New American Play. It also spawned several national tours and single location runs. The first introduction to Hamilton was even performed by Miranda at a spoken word event at the White House. At the time, the audience laughed at the idea of making the story of Alexander Hamilton into a primarily hip-hop musical. Miranda himself stated that he was working on a hip-hop album about someone whom he believed embodied hip-hop. Who would have ever thought of combining these two elements? Well, the answer is Lin-Manuel Miranda. On top of these already incredible achievements, Miranda received the 2015 MacArthur Foundation Award and won the National Arts Club Medal of Honor. He has stars on both the Puerto Rico and Hollywood Walks of Fame. And if that isn't enough, Miranda has made a name for himself as an activist for hurricane relief in Puerto Rico and has used his talents to write songs to support this relief, as well as relief after the Orlando nightclub shootings. Miranda also included elements in his production of Hamilton to honor his family and other current immigrants in the United States, as Hamilton himself was an immigrant. He was able to combine this political issue that had such deep meaning to him with this historical concept. One such line states, "Immigrants, we get the job done." He combined his ethical characteristics with his musical ability to send a powerful message to his audiences. Other more recent notable accomplishments include seeing Miranda as the founder of the improv hip-hop group Freestyle Love Supreme. Miranda also has had his hand in literature, as he collected and wrote a book based on his own inspiring tweets. On top of all of this, Miranda has also appeared in feature films and television, including Saturday Night Live and Mary Poppins Returns. Miranda is also a great dancer. The man really has done it all. After watching Hamilton, I decided to look into more of the works of Lin-Manuel Miranda. I was amazed to find out that many of the things he'd been involved in were things that I had grown to love over the years. Lin-Manuel Miranda had been involved in Disney productions, including Moana. My favorite song upon viewing that film was one called You're Welcome, which I quickly learned was written by the one and only Lin-Manuel Miranda. This song was so intricately written with so much lyrical detail that it struck me as being quite different from many of the other songs that are found in Disney animated films. Again, Lin-Manuel Miranda struck me with his elegant sense of humor that seemed to fit so perfectly into the atmosphere of the film. Miranda won a Grammy Award for his work on the production, as well as Oscar and Golden Globe nominations. Miranda has also been recognized for his musical achievements within the Star Wars franchise. Many people have noted the creativity held by Lin-Manuel Miranda. CNN called him an unparalleled creator, while Michelle Obama praised him as being a beautiful storyteller and artist. She even went as far as saying that Lin-Manuel's creation of Hamilton should be held as a standard to what our school should look like. She believes that if more historians could capture the artistic beauty of history in the way that Miranda was able to, that we would excel in our academic programs. Of his own creativity, Lin states the importance of falling in love with the projects he creates. This, in and of itself, is creative. Looking at a project with the desire to truly be captivated by it and drawn into love it is such a novel and beautiful way of viewing a new venture. He also credits his creativity to the exposure to opportunities that he was provided with in school, where he was able to stretch his creativity. His goal is to create art for art. He doesn't create art for the sake of seeking glory and praise. Instead, he pursues creative projects that he believes will help him to learn something. He stresses the importance of looking to your own experiences and seeing the value in them when it comes to creative projects. He also stresses the importance of learning from other creators, directors, and productions. Lin-Manuel Miranda is very aware of his creativeness. When he speaks in interviews about how to obtain high levels of creativity, he seems to be in recognition that he has excelled in an area that many have not. He seeks to encourage and inspire others in his successes. In his introduction of Hamilton at the White House, when it was just a concept album that he was working on at the time, he came forward with confidence, knowing how the idea was going to sound to a group of individuals in Washington. When the crowd laughed, he acknowledged it, but he maintained his position that hip-hop truly was where the voice of Hamilton could be most loudly heard. Miranda's concept held originality in the way of thinking. It was a risk to introduce such an original concept at such an important event, but he was given the space and opportunity to do it, and it paid off. Years later, the cast of Hamilton was asked back to the White House to perform after all of its successes. Watching him perform at the initial White House performance, you could feel the energy coming off of him. He performed the entire song, which was written eventually for many different voices, by himself. And in character. You could see the veins coming out of his neck because he was giving all that he had to the performance. His eyes were large, his arms were moving, he was not still. He was full of motion, emotion, and energy that was able to move the whole room to their feet. Miranda's curiosity has also moved him in many of his creative ventures. Because he pursues projects in which he is able to learn something himself, he has to look to new stories and ideas. The idea for Hamilton came to him when his curiosity led him to read a biography on the life of Alexander Hamilton. He infused the story with his own musical styles and also a good amount of humor. It was complex, full of so many musical dimensions, and it was not a simple outline. The complexities of the lyrics weaving in and out of the production were one of the main attributes that drew in such wide audiences and left them in awe. Miranda had also encouraged students to press on with their creative ideas. He reminds us that ideas can occur anywhere, and when they do, they should not be ignored. It is important to take that idea and expand from it in order to achieve creativity. Miranda is a perfect example of this in his own life. He told the story of leaving a birthday party because he had a brilliant idea for one of the songs from Hamilton, but knew that if he left the idea to die, he would be missing out on a marvelous opportunity. Miranda recognized his need for alone time to develop his idea. In this same way, if I could encourage him in anything, it would be to continue this line of thinking. If someone has a creative idea like this, we should encourage them to pursue the idea to fulfillment. We should give them the means and the opportunities to grow. Friends and family can often unknowingly stand in the way of creativity by making one feel like their ideas are not practical or important. Can you imagine if his friend had become angry and insisted he stay at that birthday party? The world would have missed out on beautiful, creative music. Miranda's teacher at his recital eventually stopped him, but she gave him the time and space to flourish where it was possible. This is a specific way to help someone flourish. We have to provide an environment that is safe. We have to provide environments where students can take risks and play that one more song, even if it wasn't in the plans. Miranda recognizes that the opportunities that he had in school were foundational in molding him into the creator that he became. By providing instances in school where Miranda would be given leadership roles, teachers were able to help him to flourish in his creativity even from a young age. Giving leadership roles to students like Miranda is a second way to help them flourish. If we are holding their hands all the way and giving them such specific directions that they have no room to think for themselves, we could accidentally snuff out the flame of creativity in them. A third way to help a student like Miranda flourish is to provide them with appropriate feedback. In the Heights was an incredible production, and Cale recognized the potential when he viewed it for the first time. However, he gave critical feedback and reminded Miranda that he believed that he was capable of even more. He didn't squash his dreams or squelch his creativity. Rather, he pushed Miranda to be the best that he could possibly be. The result was an award-winning production that would start the path for Miranda to break records and have his name uplifted for his later creative ventures. It is important to recognize the strengths of projects, but also to recognize and critique the weaknesses so that we can help each other to grow as creative individuals. Lin-Manuel Miranda truly is unparalleled in his field. His creative genius has been widely recognized and his achievements are no small feat. How I hope and pray that each individual who has been inspired by Miranda's story may turn inward and look at the creative potential within themselves. Everyone has that potential in them. May we be inspired to excel to the fulfillment of our potential. Who knows, maybe in 20 years, someone will be making a video like this about you too.
He did not throw away his shot. He did not throw away his shot. He's a genius creator who is a novel maker, and he's not throwing away his shot. He was well aware of his skill in college, wanted to learn things and to fill his mind with some knowledge of things that knew he was right and amazed and astonished. Took risks and made himself heard with every word he acknowledged. He's an independent man, an artist made of gold, who could think of things in complex ways and they're not old. Sometimes he'd say, no, be alone and not wonder. This would give him the chance to go farther and ponder every thought and every vantage. For his products he could manage with an energy that gave him a stellar big advantage to create, add humor, emotion, and rap that moved the medium forward to the place that we're at. He is the M-I-R-A-N-D-A, the man that blew us all away. So now I'm taking my stand, and I have just got to say that down in history he goes, and that is where he will stay. Cause he did not throw away his shot. He did not throw away his shot. Lin's a genius creator who is a novel maker and did not throw away his shot. Shot!